I'm Mandy Pryor, and welcome to the Southwestern PA Business Podcast with the Southwest Regional Chamber of Commerce. We're here with Kelly Cain of Autism Caring Center. We're going to find out a little bit more about what this wonderful nonprofit is doing for people in the community who are neurodivergent and their families, and find out a little bit more about how you can get involved. Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
So, what can you tell me about the Autism Caring Center?
Where do you want me to start?
Well, we were talking a little bit about 7 years ago, the chamber, or I stepped into the chamber and you started the center.
Yeah.
So what was your motivation? What made you start what you do?
So my son is now 21, but he was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3 in 2006. And there wasn't a lot of supports then. So we kind of tiptoed through the world on eggshells, me and my family, watching where we go and what we did, just because of the lack of education that's out there and the lack of acceptance and, a lot of judgment, stares, rude comments. So, in our own community in North Fayette, I helped found an organization called PALS, and it enabled him to play sports and find a safety net there in that community. And then as I went through the world of autism with him, I was approached by another mom who had the same challenges and asked me to found the Autism Caring Center with her. And I said no for a long time. I didn't know a lot about nonprofits or what we'd be doing, but after 6 months of meeting for lunch and finally talked me into it, and we've been going ever since. So we have 2 locations now and just do a wide variety of things based on what I didn't have and what my son didn't have, So there's a lot of supports for the individuals with autism, and that's growing, but what we do at the center is family-based. So not only can the individuals come with their parents, but so can their siblings. So can grandma and grandpa, so can aunts. So it's more of a family center than it is just for the individual.
And so what do you typically do with the families?
So we have a lot of events throughout the year. So last week we just had Sensory Friendly Santa, so everybody could come.
That's wonderful.
And that's wonderful, right? So that you don't have that pressure of the mall.
Yes.
The sensory stimulation of being in a mall. A lot of some individuals with autism experience sensory overload. So we take that away. So like this studio, you can hear a pin drop when you walk in to see Santa. And the kids are allowed to take, up to 10, 15 minutes, however long it takes to see Santa, have crafts, light refreshments and drink. That isn't the magic though. The magic of the center is watching families connect and, being part of that and watching parents meet each other who didn't know they needed each other. And
because they're supporting each other and, sometimes you feel out on a limb on the side.
Yes. And we also provide advocacy for parents going through the IEP process and 504s. So we're able to provide that for free. That was a big part of what I wanted to do at the center. I had a lot of challenges finding the help I needed within the financial strain that we felt, because a lot of us go from 2 incomes to 1. And I was always designed to be a double income family. And then when this diagnosis came along with many other, it changes, right? So everything that we do at the center is free. We never charge families or anybody for training or advocacy. And so those 3 things have been the main thing. And then we, of course, field phone calls. Anybody looking for, somewhere to go for resources or support that we don't provide. So therapy services and things like that.
Well, and there's a lot to navigate, especially with a diagnosis. You have a child and, they're perfectly healthy, or you start seeing little signs of something you don't really know, but you don't know what to do next.
Right. You have no idea what to do. And I was in that boat, and it's very isolating, and it's very frustrating to not know how to care for your child, and not be able to meet their needs or meet them where they're at. So to go through it, and it's not like when they break their arm, you're like, oh, we go to the emergency room, there's the sign, they can fix arms, we go there.
They can fix the arm,
You get this diagnosis and you're given this packet of information with 100 providers, maybe a few phone calls, and it's like, here you go, this is how it works. And you're like, what? this is it.
What, you're just giving me a packet and like no applications and no.
Yeah, so it can be very, very confusing for families. So I am happy that there is now somewhere that they can call and get like, okay, here's the next step, you know, and not have to dig through that service provider packet, which is usually in alphabetical order.
Which is like 500 providers. And you're like, I don't know where to start. I don't know which one to pick. And
So it can
then you have your child who has autism, and you're trying to deal with that on a daily basis too. So there's only so much time to sit and have a quiet moment where you can research
And how do you know who you're picking and who's the best, and where isn't there a wait list? Because there's a lot of wait lists, and COVID did no favors for that. And you know, so giving them tips and tools to use while they're on the wait list, or supplemental ideas, so they're not always waiting for that therapy. You know,
what can you do in the meantime while you're waiting? 6 to 12 months for a therapist.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and it is nice. I have seen some movement in terms of sensory-friendly activities in the area. I know the Science Center, I went there during a sensory-friendly, I didn't know, sensory-friendly day. I was like, this is lovely.
Yeah, right?
It's very peaceful, it's quiet, you know, it's not, there's so much, especially if you take your kids to like certain things, there's like a typical child loves noise and movement and excitement, and whereas a child with autism is probably like, I'm going to go into the corner now. I want to be away from all of this. So
so that behavior would just look like you said, like a shutting down, like going into the corner, or as my son did, go through it very quickly. So we
just run.
We went to light up night before we had diagnosis. As a mom of 3, and he was my youngest, I knew there was something wrong, and I went, but we were on a wait list. So. We were waiting for the diagnosis, and we went downtown for light up night. We're a family, we should go. And he took off, fist in front of him, straight ahead, like he was Superman, and he ended up in this, this is the end of Penn, that's all blocked off down there, in this very quiet art gallery in the corner. And everybody's in there sipping wine and looking at art, and there's me, has anybody seen this one? And there he was in the corner.
And he's like, this is nice.
And we never went back. And then we're all leaving as a family, so we're all putting on coats and leaving. My daughters are having fun, but we're leaving, It was 2006. There wasn't the acceptance that you see some now in public, or a little less of that judgment that I talked about a little bit earlier. So having the center, if you don't want to deal with a night like that, helps, right?
Yeah.
So,
and you have nice activities, and the other kids so does an autistic child who are with other autistic children, do they typically react better than in like situations where the children are typical?
So I think that the center gives comfort to somebody that has autism, but it also gives comfort to the families that are there. Yeah. And that peace of mind, and because a sigh of relief when you walk in, and that it's okay for your son to stim here. It's okay for him to go in the sensory room and take 10 minutes. He doesn't have to be on
the other parents aren't judging your child.
Right. And then the siblings can actually have a sigh of relief too. When I opened the center, my children are older. My oldest is 27. So she was 21, 22. And we were putting some of the finishing touches on it. And she said, this would have been nice. This would have been nice. And I said, what do you mean, for Clayton? And she said, no, for us. So just that for the siblings as well. And I see it like when some siblings come in, even for the Santa, they take a step back. They don't realize that this is for them too. So being able to let them connect with others as well. So we do have a sibling support group as well.
That's great.
So that will resume in January. I think everything's going to resume in January. But we do have a New Year's Eve party this year for the kids to come. It starts at 10:30 and it ends at noon. So the parents can still have a little bit of a reprieve, and we'll just do some friendly activities. And again, that's open to the families, so nobody's left out, so it makes it nice.
And so what are the families, when they first come in, what are they looking for? What are they, they're trying to understand what's happening.
Acceptance, support, I often see that sigh of relief that I've mentioned before, just like, oh, thank God you're here. Or, oh, I'm so glad this is here. I had no idea you were here. Oh, is it okay if he, I'm like, yeah, we don't have safety concerns. We have one door that's open. You don't have to worry about anybody running out any doors. There's plenty of people that understand your journey.
Yeah.
And, you often feel like you're on an island with a white flag and nobody sees it. And this is kind of like, the stakes in the ground. We're at the center, that logo's out there and it's for a reason,
Yeah.
We're needed. And so being able to provide solutions for that isolation is the main part of the center, I believe. And then moms, as you know, any typical mom usually takes the brunt, usually ends up being the one staying home. There are some dads there, and I'm not saying anything about dads, but that's something I think that comes natural for a lot of moms, that they stay back. And especially with diagnosis, it's like, okay, I gotta fix this. I gotta,
you want to fix things.
You want to fix things. So when we started the center, that was one of the first things we did, was have a lunch. Let's just have a lunch and let's see how many people come. And we had 40 moms come, and we had an inspirational self-care speaker, just to kind of remember that they can remember who they are, because you get lost
Well, and
in
I think
this.
another thing with moms, you always feel like no matter what you do, no matter how hard you're working, you're failing.
Yeah.
Even for any child.
Right.
Because you're working so hard, but then, you're like, I'm not spending enough time sitting and cuddling them because I'm cooking dinner and I have to do laundry. Am I cleaning too much? But then my house is too messy. So you go back and forth on, just generally speaking. So sitting with other moms who are like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And your child does that too. And your child does that too. And this happens to you too. So, I think for some moms, they can feel a little bit of shame, or like, I should have caught this sooner, or why didn't I know? And that could be very difficult. So, taking that away. So the luncheon gave them a chance to just relax and connect and, just take an hour for themselves. And then the next year we had 60. And then the third year we had 80. And it just kept growing. And after the third luncheon, I had a lot of moms that say, can you have another speaker? Can you get some vendors here? And I'm like, can you help?
I need a committee.
It's just
time
me.
for a committee.
So the following year came around for the luncheon, and I reached out to a few moms and I said, do you really want a conference? And they were like, yes. And it was right after the pandemic. So we started the conference in April for it was supposed to be
a large undertaking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's worth it. Yeah. I feel like that's the whole thing. This unique, specialized community of children, adults, and families is so worth it.
Yeah.
And to watch their growth, whether it's their child or just the mom or the dad come, or whoever it is, to see it is so, it's rewarding for me, but it also validates the center, whether I'm still at the helm or not, whoever is, it's just worth it to be part of this community and to support it. So we moved forward with a conference that year, and this will be our fourth year in 2025 at the CNX building in South Point. So there's a little bit of a fee because we do provide food and dinner and everything, but it's a really great opportunity for the women to get away and connect. And I have got some slack over the last couple of years. Why isn't this for everybody? Dads are doing it too. We do have some teachers and people that are interested in learning about autism a little bit more attend. So that's neat. I was like, do you have a child? I'm a teacher, and I thought that was interesting. So
well, they see all the different types of children who are in the classrooms, and they interact differently. There's different things to look for. And I think that's wonderful to hear teachers are proactive about learning about different diagnoses.
And I think they want to hear the mom's perspective. I think they wanted to see what the moms were learning too. So, it's educational, but we also have inspirational speakers in self-care. So they don't forget about themselves, because that's so easy to do, as any mom can relate to, but this is tenfold, right? And so I always said I never look at myself from here up. I only saw myself from here up for like 10 years. I'd be like, what do I have on? Oh, I'm dressed, I'm leaving.
What's
like,
happening?
I'm
Yeah.
chasing, I'm running through a store. I'm like, at least I have clothes on. Like, that's how it was for a while, you know? So I'd only look at myself from the neck up and be like, if that's okay, then we're going, you know?
Yeah.
So having this chance to just breathe and walk into a community and just know you're there. And, you know, there's some moms that are be like, oh, I've been through all that, I don't need to be there. The younger moms need you.
They need you to see where their child is going to be in 10 years,
Yeah,
too.
so we do a lot of transition.
That's a big thing.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, transition, we talk about that, transition topics, and, you know, from the very beginning of your journey all the way through. And our keynote this year is Judith Orsetti. She's a keynote speaker. She founded the Profound Autism Alliance. And that's not my experience, but a lot of our moms that come to the center do have a child with profound autism. And I just want moms to know that this isn't a conference just for a person on the spectrum that might be higher functioning than the next. This conference is not designed around the diagnosis, it's designed around the mom's needs. Does that make sense?
It does.
So it's not just because your child has autism, it's like, okay, your child has autism, and whether it's this severity or that severity, it's designed around what you may need to guide them. It's not designed around their diagnosis. So
it's like your form of positive parenting with a child of any
twist.
level.
Yeah. So we're excited to be in South Point this year and local, and happy to, you know, serve those moms and hopefully get some more moms in from Washington Township as well. Yeah.
Good. And why don't you share a little bit about what autism is?
Yeah.
A little bit for those who don't know, you know, never experienced it, kind of heard the word floating around, but aren't sure exactly what that means.
Right. So in the training, we just use the medical dictionary definition. You know, it's a neurological developmental disorder, and it affects your ability to be social, and it affects your ability to communicate. So it's really a social and a communication issue. It's not the ability to be educated. So I know that sounds like really like simple, but it is that simple. It's a social and an emotional communication. So if you can't be social and you have a hard time communicating, how hard is it going to be for you to walk through a grocery store or participate in school or sit in a learning environment? And then you have sensory issues on top of that. So lights, smells, your bracelet, your earrings, I might be able to hear the lights above me, the sounds I'm hearing now.
The little buzz, yeah.
Yeah, the little buzz, things like that. The perfume that your teacher's wearing. Some kids have a really high sensitive hearing, so they might be sitting in school and they can hear the person in back of them turning the page if books are still a thing, or hear the cars going past, and that's so much of a distraction for them that when the teacher's talking, they can only hear the page turning in back of them or their card. So,
and everybody, I think, at some level has experienced that.
Yeah, so there's some processing issues that go along with that, and when there's a processing issue, then there's a processing delay. So that makes it harder to keep up with the conversation like you and I are having, you know? So most people with autism have a 1/3 processing delay. So in layman's terms, that's 10 seconds of a 30-second conversation.
That they're just waiting to hear.
So you're waiting, like if I said to you, how was your breakfast today? We would wait 10 seconds for your answer.
Yeah,
And
that would be
a long time.
Very hard for
It's
conversation.
a very long time. So, you know, it's really important to, you know, understand that definition and what it looks like in a business, what it looks like for a job interview, what it looks like in a school environment, fire department, police training. So we dove into that as well. So we've provided fire department training, most recently the state police in Washington, a couple weeks ago, I think that was now. Rocco Gigliardi. I think I'm saying his last name right. He invited us to do autism awareness training there for his officers. So that's really important because those intense situations that...
And they don't know what to do because it's a different scenario, you know?
Yeah, and a lot of first responders, I mean, they're making life-changing decisions in seconds. But having just one piece of information or, you know, a tenth of a second to say, oh, wait, maybe this isn't what I'm seeing, you know, and to see the light bulbs go off during the training that can be specialized for anybody from work environment. We just did U.S. Steel, their human resources department, in November, and then switching it over to state police. So, the training can be designed for any business. And then some schools, but a lot of schools do have their own training with pairs and stuff. We do get some requests for that, but mainly the first responders and just the general community organizations that really want to be autism friendly.
Yeah.
And
because it's not just, and you talk about high functioning, it's not just a childhood disorder. It lasts a very long time.
right, yeah.
And if they are high functioning, they might be in your office and you might not know.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah. Or like they might not get the job. There's I think the unemployment rate, 78% of individuals on the spectrum do not get the job, and they are graduates of Carnegie Mellon.
They're brilliant.
They're brilliant, but to sit in a social situation and have an emotional conversation.
Which it is a lot of person to person. It's a lot of relationship building within any, especially corporate environments.
It appears as, not a team player. It appears as, they never come to lunch. So there's all these things that we can be aware of as a society and say, okay, look, they might not do this, but they can do this.
And not every employer is going to be as open either.
Yeah.
So it's like they hide it. They'll either hide it and be like, no, nothing's wrong. Or if they say it, then they're afraid, well, this person's going to think that I have the extreme side of things.
Yeah, so they call that masking, right?
Yeah.
So, and then they end up quitting. Or they're like, I have no idea why they quit, because they're holding it in all day and they can't do their job, or maybe, they're afraid to let somebody know. So having employers be aware of like what to look for during an interview or even their job applications, making those a little bit more, the language a little bit more simple can be helpful. Just learning those tips and tools is really a good idea to have that diversity, equity, and inclusion that everybody's talking about now, but really following through with it and making sure that it's part of your business. I think it's really important to show the support for the community. 1 in 36 now are diagnosed in childhood. I have 36 people in my immediate family. I have a big Pittsburgh family, so I think I have 36 aunts and uncles and cousins. So, when you look at it that way, it's almost an obligation at this point to really get that training and make it part of your company.
Yeah.
It's a high number, and I think it's the least supported childhood diagnosis, and it continues into adulthood, and it's managed. It's not cured.
Well, and hopefully as things progress here and even Walmart's having sensory shopping hours, that continues to change, and it continues to get better, so that the generations above, you're like, well, they're kind of brilliant, so you might want to use them for, whatever start looking at what people are good at, and instead of just, here's a generic role for this, and here's the generic role, and we've had these roles for 20 years.
Right.
And start saying, where are people's strengths and where are people's differences?
Right, yeah. So, I know with my son, and he's very open with his diagnosis, so I'm not crossing any lines by talking about him, but I always say to him, you're never going to make it through a job interview. Are you even listening to me, because you could be talking to him and he's looking down at the ground, and then he'll come up with this big long answer and tell me everything. And I was like, and I forget sometimes, and I live with him. I've been raising him for 21 years now. So I'm like, are you listening? And I'm like, wait, he has autism. So I have to remind myself too. So I can only imagine, look, I would stare too. I would look too. I'd walk away. I wouldn't wait for that 10 seconds to respond, or, whatever the wait time is. I get it. I understand the view from the outside as well. Because I have 2 daughters that I raised as well, and I had to teach them along the way too. We learned together as a family, so it's important for those around us that want to be accepting. And when you say my son has autism, they don't just do the head nod. Yeah. Like you and I talked about that. You can actually say, oh yeah, I do know what that is. So, and being able as a mom to go to work and your child might have had a bad night, or daycare, somebody being able to understand what you're talking about, at work. Like, oh, my employer had autism awareness training. They support this here. Like, people are going to understand what I'm going through now. I can say I had a bad day. It's not just
a normal. I mean, there's always arguments with children, especially in the morning.
Yeah.
This morning's it's been a morning.
Yeah.
But, the biggest thing, I think, it's just calming the situation and trying to get back into your headset for work, because obviously there comes a point when you need to make an income.
Right.
And being able to find your center, because it helps with them.
Yeah, right. So being able to have an outlet, I know for me, I chose not to work during the day. I chose not to work. I chose to be there in case the phone rang and I needed to pick him up from school. I chose to be there when he got off the bus. I made those decisions, and I worked at Pier 1 Imports at night. But it gave me an out of the house for a little bit, and I was like, what am I doing?
That little break, yeah.
But it did, it changes it for my family. I shouldn't say for everybody, but my experience and some of those along the way, it changes your family. It changes the threats. It changes how you function. And you don't see it coming. And, a lot of these kiddos that you see in young adults, they appear as if they're well functioning and highly could understand a conversation, and it's just that's not how it is, So being able to provide the support and have the center from, diagnosis through, the latest thing that I'm most proud of is the Spectrum Club. There's kids that have been coming since they were when the center opened, and they're now teenagers, and some of them are 20, 21, and they started the Spectrum Club, and they had their first meeting, and they actually stood up and read off a list of things everybody was required to bring for the Christmas party that's coming up. And I know it doesn't sound like a big deal, but for me and for the moms that were there, we were so proud of them. So they are baking the cookies, they are bringing the dips, they are FaceTiming each other to see what they're doing.
That's wonderful. I don't know if most teenagers do that.
Right, and they work hard. They work really hard, and they sat down and they wrote out a list of things, and they named the party and what kind of music they wanted, and it's Frank Sinatra, and it's all these different genres.
Wonderful.
And they're going to do a craft, and they wanted to know who was bringing the decorations, and they're pulling out their skills and abilities that way, and showing what they can do there already. So the goal for 2025 is, to get that training going, but also we're thinking in the Oakdale location having a little pop-up coffee shop so that those kids can develop some soft skills. Because like I said, the interview process is very hard for them. So going to work at McDonald's or Wendy's or things like that,
well, and you've heard it,
isn't an option.
Cafe Momentum.
Yeah.
They have people with disabilities who are working there. So I think that's wonderful what they're doing.
Right.
And giving kids opportunity, teens, 20s,
and it's important that it's in there
to try something,
right,
without judgment, without saying you're not like A, B, C, and D. You're Z, and we don't take Z's.
Right.
So,
and it's important to have it in your community. Like where I'm at, we're in the the zip code's Oakdale, but we're closer to Robinson. There isn't a lot out there, and some of it isn't on a bus line even. So it's important to have businesses in your local community that's easy for parents to get to, that can they can take their kids to work and not have to worry. So we're looking forward to that launching as well in the beginning of the spring. So lots going on at the center.
Well, and how can our business community? We're here in front of them right now. How can they help?
I think it depends on your organization and what the goals of your organization is. But if you want to show support for your autism community and you're a restaurant, a hotel, anything like that, autism awareness training for families, let them know you're autism friendly, let them know that they can walk in and your waitress understands, that your hotel employee understands. I think that's first and foremost. if you were an organization that would like to hire or support moms, I think sponsorship for conferences or any type of our community programming is important, and you can reach out to us for any of those.
It's going to families, it's going to support these families.
It stays local. We don't do research. We don't do anything like that. We provide tangible things that families can hold on to, and building those relationships. The Spectrum Club, like I was talking to you about, those families are from Fox Chapel, Aliquippa, Washington County, Allegheny County.
So they're from all
and
over.
Beaver, and they are all meeting at our little center in Oakdale, and they wouldn't have found each other. So I feel like depending on your company's mission and how you like to give back, do you want to show your support to those parents? Do you want to show your support to those kids? How does it fit into your business plan? And we have a lot of different options, ways they can do that. So we always need sponsorships. You know that. We always need sponsorships.
So as they're all planning for 2025, think of the Autism Caring Center.
Yes, we have our conferences in April, and we need sponsors, so that would be amazing.
Okay. Yeah. And we'll make sure that the Chamber shares out their information. So if you are considering sponsoring the conference, this would be a good opportunity, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
For your name to be in front of everyone.
Yeah, and it's local. It's right at CNX, and our families, they take notice, and they tend to support those who support them. So we Texas Roadhouse, we did their training, and they. A lot of families go there now because they know the staff is trained.
Texas Roadhouse.
Yeah, so they know that
community driven.
Right, they know the staff is trained. So once you know the staff is trained, you're like, oh, it's safe to go there. And I don't know how else to put that, but that's the feeling that I had as a mom.
You can relax a little bit.
Or you found yourself going at like 4:00 in the afternoon when it first opens. You know what I mean?
That random time, and it's a little quieter.
Yeah, it's a little quieter. Nobody else is there.
Yeah.
So that having the training and education, letting people know your organization is autism friendly or you've sponsored us, I think the return on your investment is there. So yeah, it would be nice to see.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with the people watching, or that I haven't touched base on?
No, I think that be kind.
Be kind.
I think be kind. Take a second or two before you make judgment on that mom or that dad that's having a hard time. I think being kind to this community is very important. And, I would urge training, even if you don't have a business or an organization, come to one of our autism awareness nights and receive training. If you're searching for somebody with autism, there's different techniques you could use. So, be kind and be educated, and that would really help the families we serve and mine.
It's 1 in 36.
It's 1 in 36. Yep.
It's a classroom.
It is. It is. It's 1 in 36. In your neighborhood, can you imagine? So, that's what I would say.
Good. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing everything.
And
I hope that some of the businesses out there find time to find autism training for their employees and sponsor your upcoming event and really get the awareness out there. Because I think it's an important mission for you and for our community. And
it is. And I can't tell you the sigh of relief these families feel when they see the support that they receive from other businesses and their community members, because they don't feel it on a daily basis,
as alienated from the community.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on
Thank
today.
you.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Southwestern PA Business Podcast. Thanks to Kelly Cain and the Autism Caring Center, and for learning more about what we can do to help our community. And we'll see you on our next show. Thank you.